go on asset tracking, cryptocurrency payments, and you keep a majority of your code base off-chain, or the heavy lifting off-chain to your centralized system. Otherwise, you're going to have a CryptoKitty situation. The title or subtitle reads, "Tell me more about the CryptoKitties that ruined your pre-sale." And if you look at what CryptoKitties did, over 90% of their code base was entirely on smart contracts, if not all. But they had this genius smart contract at the last time we looked. That is their algorithm, their sensitive IP, their moneymaker, we call it in the game development industry. But when you produce all of your code on a blockchain that has scale issues, you run into a scenario where the gas fees spike. And that's not a great effect for blockchain at this stage, and maybe not anytime soon. So we kind of build a system that allows high throughput applications to utilize their backend and to immediately utilize any on-chain components without redeveloping their entire application stack. So we're a core technology. It's a very fun and exciting project that way for us. And I'll just walk you through a very simple implementation. I don't know if this has a laser pointer on it. Is that? Yeah, okay, great. I don't think it's working, but I'm just going to go ahead and do hand gestures here. But basically, a developer would have a cryptocurrency wallet. And it may have a decentralized exchange feature or mechanism like the Switcho network. That would pass on to a blockchain state. And that's where we capture your data and we pass it back to the application. The application is passed back through the open framework. And the open API passes that data back to a centralized domain, the actual database in itself. I can't read that, of course, but I remember this diagram from our website. But I'll take you through an example. So, as I mentioned, the scaffold generator, or the scaffold comes with a scaffold generator. And the reason why we built this is that we had to understand the specific way that developers would utilize this. If you were a developer and you had to learn the Neo smart contract language, or the Cardano smart contract language, or the Ethereum smart contract language, those are all barriers to your adoption. It would be beautiful if you didn't have to learn any of that. And you could take your existing application and within 10 minutes, port to a blockchain. That's what the scaffold generator does. It's something where you can go on a website. It's actually live today. We have this product up. There's a full demo on YouTube, and you can access it at api.openfuture.io. And we do a couple demos where we walk through an entire application from scratch, deploying the scaffold on testnet and mainnet as well, and having a payment made and having the data reflected. Pretty much this entire process online we've demoed. But essentially, a scaffold generator would complete an entire scaffold for the application developer without having to learn Solidity. And that scaffold can then communicate with any blockchain. It can communicate with Icon, Neo, Cardano, whatever it is. So you start to have this idea where specific information and data and transactions can actually be ported to multiple blockchains in favor of interoperability and ease of use and convenience for an application developer. Meaning that the CryptoKitties of the future can essentially port not only to Ethereum, but to multiple blockchains using Open's infrastructure. And that's pretty much what this diagram is showing. It's basically showing that you have a series of data, any customizable data that you want. User ID, payment amounts, whether it's the in-app purchase menu, it can all be passed in. And it's highly flexible in that nature. And of course, it's stored back in your backend, and it's actually two-way, meaning that the data can go back onto the blockchain, and the parameters of your scaffold can be updated, which is a necessary requirement because centralized systems enable this for centralized developers, whereas we have nothing like this today for a decentralized ecosystem. Is that this single scaffold, of course, can port to multiple blockchains, but it can also take data from multiple blockchains into a single application. So it's this mechanism of pushing transactions and taking the resulting data back into the application. So one application, many blockchains. You never have to really develop and single application again and again for a blockchain, which is, I mean, think of like Android and iOS. I have to build one for each system. In my previous company, we had to build a version for Facebook desktop. Then we had to build one for iOS, Apple. Then we had to build one for Android. It gets annoying after a while. But that was the platform. So a lot of people, on this roadshow that we're doing, and this tour that we're doing, we're actually announcing the launch of our protocol blockchain as well. And this protocol blockchain is specifically centered around scalability and interoperability. And a lot of people aren't aware that Open is actually coming out with this chain. And the purpose of this chain is to push a lot of these applications to multiple blockchains. And of course, it's utilizing the same token. And yes, there's no sale for it. There will be a swap for it later on. I don't know if that's good news or not for you guys, but we've been hearing some great feedback around that. But the core feature of this is interoperability, to push multiple, to push data across multiple chains and back, and then obviously scalability. So we have a kind of a multi-processing consensus mechanism, very similar to how processors do dual core or multi-core processing, where we can take our own consensus mechanism and we can actually parallelly produce and operate multiple different consensus mechanisms in the same operation of your transaction, meaning that Open in its DPoS model, or delegated proof of stake, could run, federated Byzantine algorithm could run, Tendermint could run, all these different consensus mechanisms could run to achieve a relatively high number of transactions, or throughput is what we call it. So this is something that we're very excited about. And this diagram looks a little complicated, but it actually simplifies the developer's life and a blockchain developer's life. And the way it works is we naturally have the application transaction and we have the open chain. So pass through Open's blockchain, where we host a cluster of nodes. So a number of nodes across various blockchains. So utilizing 4 or 5 blockchains, we can push the transaction throughput data to multiple blockchains simultaneously while it runs on Open's blockchain. And that's our core feature of our own blockchain. And the idea behind this is that when you have this interoperability between multiple blockchains, you're taking advantage of all their consensus mechanisms, but you're also utilizing the Open blockchain scaffold, which can push all that data between multiple blockchains and their consensus mechanisms into a specific application, back to the open state, which could be tracked to a database, or wherever you want that information to hold. So primarily, our core feature and function is centered around data and transactions. And of course, one of the initial use cases of that is payments. And that's where a lot of our application developers and partners today are most excited about the Open Project for, because it provides a necessary requirement for anyone looking to transact an application. We really like to point out is our developer growth pool. And essentially, it's an ecosystem model that we built that is self-sustainable in a way. So we create a developer growth pool at token inception. And what that pool of token is used for is to incentivize new relationships with application developers. So if you're an application, you're a game, or a decentralized application, or as David at Zensoft mentioned, if you are a team with an idea, or you know someone with an idea, please apply to that website. We have this great developer growth pool. We provide marketing, infrastructure, expertise, and end users as well. And I'll tell you a bit about an existing decentralized application that utilized us. So a core team of ex-Facebook developers in Menlo Park, California, started to build a decentralized application game over December. And their journey was they had to first learn Solidity. So they spent 2 months just picking up Solidity. And then they had to learn how their smart contracts work. Then they executed $5 just to execute their code base once. And it also took 45 minutes to return any result. So when we approached them and they approached us, we had a great conversation. We said, utilize Open to take the components of your application off-chain and leave your payments, your data, and the transactions on-chain. Instantly, we reduce all their fees,